This week is the week of perks at Potbelly. Think of it as a delicious sandwich holiday from October 2nd to October 6th, where Potbelly drops a new gift every 24 hours, exclusively for perks members, which means a new festive way to enjoy legendary toasted sandwiches at Potbelly. And no, it's not a religious holiday, unless your religion is sandwiches, in which case it's the most religious holiday there is. Potbelly, we bring the hot.
Local news, national news, even feel-good news, delivering the topics that are relevant to you.
That's why I listen to Joe. He covers it all.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Well, welcome. I'm so glad you're here for us on a Monday afternoon, and we're glad to be here for you on a Monday afternoon. ICYMI. You guys know what that stands for. In case you missed it, the key word this hour is vacation. 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 That is the word that you need to input in the WDBO app right now. Just open up that WDBO app and tap the button that says payroll payout, and then enter the word vacation there, and you'll be eligible to win $1,000. So good luck to you. And by the way, I should point out, I always like to point this out, that if you enter the word vacation and then suddenly your cell phone rings, in the I don't know, next 30 minutes, 45 minutes or so, answer your phone. It's remarkable how many people don't answer their phone, even though they have just entered a contest to win $1,000. Answer and believe me, I don't answer my phone either, but I don't enter for the contest because I'm not eligible for the contest. If you enter for the contest, answer your phone. Otherwise, someone else will win. It's incumbent upon someone answering the phone, okay? All right, we do have breaking news here for you this afternoon. Where did I put the breaking news sound? Here it is. All right, so Donald Trump just about within the last 30 minutes walked out of the courtroom in New York City. I will say he was quite a bit less feisty coming out of the courtroom than he was this morning when he went into the courtroom. He spoke for 3.5 minutes. Here it is, Donald Trump's comments in its entirety.
Well, I think that was very good. That last 5 minutes was outstanding, because the judge essentially conceded that the statute of limitations that we won at the Court of Appeals is in effect. Therefore, about 80% of the case is over. I was going to come out and say that, as you know, we're not entitled to a jury, which is pretty unusual in the United States of America. So we think it's very unfair that I don't have a jury. But the judge's last statement was very fair. And if I read it right, I'll let perhaps one of the lawyers speak to it. But Cliff, maybe you'll speak to it if you would. But the way I interpret that, and the way everyone else in the room seems to interpret that, is that the statute of limitations is a very real thing in this country. And that would be about 80% of this case would be over. Could somebody speak to that, please? Cliff, you want to talk about that?
Sure. So based on the judge's comments, at the end of the trial today, it would appear that he is agreeing that all of the transactions that closed prior to 2014 are now out of the case,
which is about 80% of the case.
I know it's very hard to hear what that lawyer said. He was kind of off microphone. The acoustics are bad in the first place, as they're standing in a courtroom hallway. But what the attorney said was that any transactions that occurred prior to 2014 are outside the statute of limitations and thus won't be considered. And as both Trump and the attorney have said, that represents about 80% of the case. Now will not be considered. All right, we continue.
And it's also something that we won on appeal, but was not accepted by this court, but now seems to be accepted by this court. As far as the jury is concerned, it's much different now. I must tell you that it was 20 minutes ago. We were going to come out and complain that, in this country you're entitled to a jury. But we very much appreciate the judge's decision today, or his statement today, on the statute of limitations, which is a very big thing. There's a limited time period. And we did nothing wrong. And if you look at the statements, they showed that even in 2011, I guess the number was $258 million in cash. Very strong company. I don't believe we really, maybe I wouldn't do a couple of deals or something, but I wouldn't have even needed to go to banks. Banks loved our business. They loved our deals. They weren't defrauded. They lost no money. They made money. They had the finest attorneys that there are. Frankly, their attorneys were better than my attorneys. And they made a lot of money, and they considered me a very good client. I paid them back on time, on schedule. There was no default. They never even sent me a default letter. Not one. For years, never got a default letter. And there's no case here. There's no victim. The banks aren't a victim. The insurance companies are a victim. Everybody got paid. It's a terrible, terrible thing. This was for politics. Now, it has been very successful for them because they took me off the campaign trail. Because I've been sitting in the courthouse all day long instead of being in Iowa, New Hampshire, South Carolina, or a lot of other places I could be at. This is a horrible situation for our country. It's never happened before. It's election interference. They're interfering with the presidential election of 2024, and the people of our country see it. But this was a big, I say surprise, but it was a great credit to the court that the judge was willing to do this. He sort of overruled himself, and I greatly respect that. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
And that was about 30 minutes ago. And then, of course, only Fox News carried that. CNN did not. Nobody else carried that. You heard it here on WDBO. And I will say that one of the things that bothers me about Donald Trump is he is so comfortable with stretching the truth or, frankly, lying that he lies even when the lie doesn't help his story, even when the truth would be sufficient. And I'll give you two examples from the comments that he just made. He, at the beginning, bemoaned that he's not entitled to a jury. And he bemoaned that, that's not the American way. He absolutely is and was entitled to a jury. He is lying about that, in that either he or his legal team decided that they were going to go with a judge's ruling and forego a jury ruling. You have that right as an American citizen. You can pick either the judge to make the decision or a jury to make the decision, a judge trial or a jury trial. And either Trump and or his legal team decided to forego a jury trial because they didn't think they would get a fair trial with a jury of New Yorkers. They think that Donald Trump is hated too much, so they wanted to go with a judge. So that was a lie for Donald Trump to say that he's not entitled to a jury hearing. And then he said near the end that today's legal proceedings, quote, took me off the campaign trail. That is also a lie. While he was off the campaign trail today, that was by his own choice. He was not required to be in court today. He's not required to be in court tomorrow. They're saying that this could be a 3-month trial. He is not required to be in court. He didn't have to be there today. He could have been out campaigning in Iowa. He could have been out campaigning in New Hampshire. He could have been out campaigning in South Carolina. But he chose to be inside a courtroom today. And there are plenty of Trump supporters, particularly the diehard Trump sycophants, who will believe that Donald Trump is getting railroaded by not being entitled to a jury trial, and believe that Trump's campaign is being stolen from him because he has to be in court. Neither of those two things are true. And it's just a shame that he has to stretch the truth and or lie when, frankly, he still has a good story to tell. I mean, he had a very, very good day in court today, and he is not facing near as bad a consequences as he was this morning when the day got started. So it's just a shame. I think that the lie comes so easily for Donald Trump that he doesn't think twice about it. And perhaps in his mind, he doesn't even think it's a lie. Or he thinks that you're too stupid. We're all too stupid to understand what the truth is. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app with your comments, your thoughts, your reflections. Coming up next here on the Joe Kelley Show, all the stories that you missed while you're at the office today. We'll have that for you. Coming up next, stay with us here on WDBO.
Now, the three big things you need to know.
Three.
Residents along the St. Johns River will be watching water levels closely this week. After many areas experienced heavy rainfall over the last weekend, the river is expected to reach moderate flood stage Monday.
Two.
After the Biden-Harris administration's student debt relief plan was blocked by the Supreme Court back in June, for the first time since the pandemic, federal student loan payments are due amid stubborn inflation and rising interest rates. The first payments began on Sunday.
One.
The Major League Baseball postseason begins Tuesday with first-round wild card matchups, including the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the Texas Rangers and the Miami Marlins facing the Philadelphia Phillies.
This week is the week of perks at Potbelly. Think of it as a delicious sandwich holiday from October 2nd to October 6th, where Potbelly drops a new gift every 24 hours, exclusively for perks members, which means a new festive way to enjoy legendary toasted sandwiches at Potbelly. And no, it's not a religious holiday, unless your religion is sandwiches, in which case it's the most religious holiday there is. Potbelly, we bring the hot.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk.
Hey, Joe, I just want to say any successful business person who's being defamed and they're trying to take away your life's work would want to be in court to defend themselves. And that is why Trump is there. Also about him not being on the campaign trail. Yeah, he is on the campaign trail. Every American needs to see what he's going through. He's campaigning every day that this goes on because it's wrong.
Yeah, look, I don't knock Donald Trump for being in court today, wanting to hear what was going on. He's got a vested interest in it. But it is a lie to say that it took him off the campaign trail. It's just not. It's not honest. He's being disingenuous when he says that. And it is always interesting to me the amount of people who want to defend Donald Trump when he is quite clearly lying.
Hey, Joe, it's a lot of nitpicking you got going on with Trump with respect to him not being off the campaign trail because he chose to attend the trial. I want to point out a statement you made a while ago, and you said only Fox News carried his live conference. Well, Newsmax carried it as well, and I guess you may have been lying when you said only Fox News carried it, because I saw it live on Newsmax. I guess you're lying.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed for you for not recognizing the difference between a lie and incomplete information. Donald Trump did not have incomplete information when he said that he was not entitled to a jury. Donald Trump did not have incomplete information when he says that it took him off the campaign trail. He was lying. He was just lying about that. And for my defense, Newsmax is not on any of the TVs that we have in our studios. It has never been on any of the TVs that we have in our studios. It's not a cable channel. It's a streaming service. And I don't count that amongst the major providers. When I say only Fox carried it, I mean ABC didn't, CBS didn't, NBC didn't, and CNN didn't, and MSNBC didn't. Those are the cable news channels, whereas Newsmax is a streaming service. There's a key difference there. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. If you're just joining us, here are the stories that you missed today while you were at work. First up, the Supreme Court says they will not take up a long shot challenge to Donald Trump's eligibility to run for president because of his role in the January 6th riots at the Capitol. So for those who thought, Donald Trump was never going to be on the ballot, you are wrong about that. He will be on the ballot for sure. 5 hours ago, men tell the BBC News that they were sexually exploited at events hosted by Abercrombie & Fitch ex-CEO Mike Jeffries. The New York Times had a story 5 hours ago. Rescuers recovered the bodies of at least 10 people in Ciudad Madero, Mexico, where a church collapsed during Sunday Mass. How terrible. About 60 people were injured. 23 of them remain hospitalized as of Monday. 2 hours ago, sad news out of North Dakota. A state senator from North Dakota, his wife and their 2 young children killed when the small plane that they were riding in crashed in Utah. Just an hour ago, Pope Francis signals an openness to blessings for gay couples amid a liberal revolt in Germany. Pope Francis signaling an openness for gay couples. And finally, less than an hour ago, 50 minutes ago, the United Nations Security Council approved sending a multinational force to Haiti as the Caribbean nation wrestles with rampant gang violence and political paralysis. Don't worry, Haiti. The Security Council, the United Nations, is on their way. Everything is going to be just fine, I'm sure, now that the United Nations is involved. We're also getting your comments and reaction to the Biden administration now paying back some of this college loan debt for college students who took out massive loans and then either haven't paid it back, haven't been willing to pay it back, haven't had the money to pay it back, or whatever reason, they're not paying it back.
I think if that happens, everybody that is paying income tax that is not one of these student loan people should quit paying their income tax.
Yeah, see how that works out for you. I understand where you're coming from, but see how that works out for you. You'll have one of the new 87,000 IRS agents at your door in no time, I am sure.
Well, I've got an idea. How about instead of paying off their loans, they give us 4 years of voluntary service in the military.
Yeah, there is already that option, the GI Bill for most Americans anyway.
Well, if they're being paid by us, it's not a loan, is it? It's almost like free money to get votes.
Yeah, it's free money for sure, but someone had to pay for it, as there is no such thing as free money. We know that.
College is an economic decision. You have to look at the return on investment. For the people that failed to properly look at the return on investment, it's absurd that they should expect the taxpayers to bail them out. That being said, I feel for these people because they were sold in a lot of cases a bunch of liberal hype by colleges and universities to get degrees that did not have a return on investment. Shame on them.
I got to tell you, I like your attitude. I like that guy's attitude because I agree. I wholeheartedly agree. I have compassion for these students, while at the same time recognize that it is not and it should not be the American taxpayer's responsibility to pay back your student loans. It absolutely, I want to be so clear about this in no uncertain terms. It should not be on the backs of the American people to pay back these loans. But that doesn't mean we should hate these college students or these college graduates. Many of them were, we as parents put a massive emphasis on our children for generations that if they wanted to make anything out of their lives, they had to go to college. And then a lot of these colleges were more than willing to take their money and give them degrees that are entirely worthless, with no ability to pay back the loans that they took out. I'm Joe Kelley. Join the discussion now, 844-580-WDBO.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. Talk and discussion on the latest breaking national news.
Crude oil prices continue to fall.
Local news.
You're not going to have Disney have its own government in Central Florida.
And stories that matter to you. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let your voice be heard on the Joe Kelley Show.
Joe, there is no way in my mind that all these trumped up charges against Donald Trump have been brought against him at this time, except for the reason of interrupting and destroying his candidacy for the president of the United States. There is just no way in my mind that anybody can think otherwise.
Yeah, 100%. I totally agree with you 100%. That this is more about political persecution than it is civil or criminal prosecution. I 100% agree with you about that. That if Donald Trump had left office and never again mentioned running for the White House again, that he wouldn't be facing much, if any, of these charges that he is currently facing.
Hi, Joe. How dare you say that Donald Trump lied? I mean, you probably think he was lying when he said that he was going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it.
Okay, hang on a second. Hang on. Paul Cross, Greg Rhodes, you guys know that I don't have the ability to detect sarcasm, and I cannot tell. Was that guy being sarcastic? Let me play it again and help me understand if this guy is being genuine, if he's being sarcastic.
Hi, Joe. How dare you say that Donald Trump lied? I mean, you probably think he was lying when he said that he was going to build a wall and make Mexico pay for it.
So is he being sarcastic, or do you think he's being honest?
I'll go ahead and I'll air the emergency weather tones right now for you, that it is absolutely a lot of sarcasm in that one. I like it a lot.
So you think that was sarcasm?
I think so, too. I think there's sarcasm.
Because I will tell you that this weekend, Donald Trump basically admitted that his entire campaign was predicated on a lie that he was going to build a wall and make the Mexicans pay for it. Listen to this.
So when you hear these lunatics back there say, Trump didn't get anything from Mexico, well, there was no legal mechanism, because I said they're going to help fund this wall, but there was no legal mechanism. How do you go to a country and say, by the way, I'm building a wall, hand us a lot of money?
Yeah. So Donald Trump all but admits that was a lie. There was, and honestly, the second I heard him say that was exactly my thought. There's not a mechanism for that. There is no way in hell that Mexico is going to pay for the wall. And that whole campaign was predicated on a lie. Did Donald Trump do more to secure the border than any modern era president? Absolutely. Did Donald Trump get part of a wall built with money that he took out of the Pentagon's budget? Yes, he did. If Donald Trump is reelected, will he do more to close the border than if Joe Biden remains in office? Absolutely so. But I just call balls and strikes. I call them as I see them. And he absolutely lied, and millions of Americans fell for it, thinking that Mexico was going to pay for the wall. And I can promise you that I will have open mics and phone calls of people saying, well, Joe, Mexico did pay for the wall because of the tariffs that we put in place. Those tariffs are not the Mexican government paying for the wall. In fact, Governor Ron DeSantis now has a plan for people, for Mexico to pay for the wall. And that is to, and I want to make sure I find the right spot on where DeSantis said this. All right. He says, Governor DeSantis now says that he is going to get Mexico to pay for the wall. That's not exactly how he phrased it. By imposing fees on remittances sent to Mexico and other countries by illegal aliens. We all know that illegal border crossers come here to the United States. They amass money, be it a large amount of money or a small amount of money, but they amass their money, and then they go down to the local, what is that place called? The check cashing places. They wire money back home. Well, literally hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars get wired, quote, back home every year here in the United States from people that are here illegally, working here illegally, living here illegally, and they are sending money out of our country, money that could be a part of our economy, but instead is being sent home to somebody else's economy. And Governor DeSantis says he is going to impose fees on those remittances. And I think that's a really good start.
Yeah, Joe, I agree. I wish he wouldn't, exaggerate the truth or lie about things that really don't matter that much. He should have just said, look, I can't get a fair jury trial in D.C. or New York City, and left it at that. Most people know he can't get a fair jury trial, and that would have been fine, but it is not going to affect me voting for him.
And I will tell you that, to be fair, Governor Ron DeSantis now has vowed to deport every migrant let in under Joe Biden. He says it's going to be his first priority. It's not going to happen. It can't happen. It won't happen. He is not going to deport everybody that has come here under Joe Biden, and I will tell you why. Just simple math on this one. So by Governor DeSantis's math, he says 6 or 7 million people have come across the border since the beginning of the Biden administration. So let's say it's 7 million, okay? A general coach bus holds 50 people. That would be 140,000 buses heading back across the Mexican border. 140,000 buses, or one bus 140,000 times. We'll put a hell of a lot of mileage on that one bus. Now, these border crossers, these illegals, as some people would refer to them, they're not going to get on buses willingly. And what are we going to do? Are we going to put a gun in their face? Are we going to put a gun in the face of an 8-year-old little girl and say, get on that bus with your mom and dad? Are we going to put them on train cars? You understand where this is headed. Do you know what the optics would be like if the United States of America, at the tip of a gun, forced people into buses and sent them against their will across the southern border? It won't happen. If Governor DeSantis is being disingenuous by saying that he is going to deport every migrant let in under Biden. You can't do that. But what you can do, and what I have discussed before, is to make the United States of America hostile to anybody who's here illegally. And I don't mean hostile as in we have to go out and be jerks to anybody with brown skin. In fact, I would suggest quite the opposite. Please don't do that. But what we need to do is prevent access to our schools, prevent access to jobs. If we find employers are employing illegal aliens, those employers will serve jail time. You put a couple of CEOs in jail, I promise you that they'll stop hiring illegal aliens. We make the United States so that people here illegally can't get a free education. They don't get free benefits. They don't get a free cell phone. They don't get health care, short of, I'm not without compassion, short of emergency health care. I would never deny a fellow human emergency health care if we have the capacity to provide it. But once we make the United States no longer inviting, they will self-deport. They will all leave this country because there is nothing here for them. And that way, we do not have to point guns into the faces of 8-year-old little girls and make them get on buses, make them get into train cars. The optics of which would just be terrible, absolutely terrible. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. I'm Joe Kelley. We will continue with your calls, comments, and more coming up. Stay with us here on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, the 3 big things you need to know.
3. The Florida Department of Transportation gives an update for the future expansion of the Bright Line, with the expected extension from the Orlando International Airport to the Convention Center having an estimated $2 billion price tag. 2. This year's Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine is being awarded to a pair of American scientists for their work in 2005 on mRNA vaccines, deemed a crucial tool in curtailing the COVID-19 pandemic. 1. During a podcast that took place entirely in his metaverse, Mark Zuckerberg discussed the possible uses of the digital world, including speaking with deceased loved ones.
Stay connected with WDBO. Listen anytime, anywhere. Get the latest breaking news and share your thoughts using the open mic. Download the WDBO app powered by BurnPad Orlando. This is where Orlando turns first for breaking news, weather, and traffic. 107.3 FM and AM 580. Orlando's news and talk. WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. In-depth segments on topics that matter to Orange, Seminole, Osceola, and all of Central Florida. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
I love your show every night. You're doing great, bud.
Joe, you're doing a great job. You keep calling balls and strikes. Yes, Donald Trump was not truthful in his statements this afternoon. Regardless of what anybody else believes, he was just not truthful.
Yeah, I agree completely. In fact, he was lying. But now, that having been said, I would still recognize that if his name is the only name on the ballot next November between a Republican and Joe Biden, I will be casting my vote for Donald Trump again. I'll be voting for Donald Trump. Yet I recognize that he is a flawed and broken man, like I am, and frankly, like you are, or woman. I don't want to presume you're all men, but we are flawed and broken people. And I particularly for those who represent us, it's my job to point out when someone has committed a flaw or displayed their brokenness. And that's what Donald Trump has done, is he has lied again. Doesn't mean I'm not going to vote for him, but I recognize him for what he is. He is fast and loose with the truth, and he always has been.
Joe, he had me at wall. I don't care who pays for the wall. He had me at wall.
Look, I get that. I understand that. I respect that. Even if he was dishonest about how the wall was going to get made, how the wall was going to get funded, I totally respect that. And I agree. Donald Trump did more to stop the flow of illegal migration across our border than any president in modern history.
Joe, I know you've said this multiple times, but it's time that we make this country less desirable to those wishing to come here illegally.
Yeah, absolutely so. That then people will self-deport, and that's what we want them to do.
Hey, Joe Kelley.
Yes.
My name's Charlie.
Charlie.
My wife took out an $18,000 loan about 5 years ago, student loan. Her balance right now is like $46,000. Sounds like loan sharking to me.
Yeah, and it's a real shame. It really is. And a lot of students have gotten a bad deal. And honestly, you know, a lot of these students have signed these loan papers when they were 17, 18 years old. I'm not saying they're without responsibility. And I absolutely do not believe that not one dime of taxpayer dollars should be spent paying back those loans. But I'm not without sympathy and empathy for those students that many of whom were sold a bill of goods, many of whom are basically in bed with loan sharks. And they've got them in a bad position. They've got them over a barrel right now, and it's terrible. So, you know, again, it is possible to believe that we shouldn't spend a dime of taxpayer dollars helping these people out, while at the same time having compassion for the very same people. I'm Joe Kelley. We'll continue the Joe Kelley Show right here on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Now, WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580. Triple Team Traffic.
There I am. Yep, sorry about that. I'm just trying to find my way here. All lanes of the turnpike, northbound and southbound, completely shut down right now. What I was doing is looking at the cameras, and I'm sorry I had to have that dramatic pause, but I'll tell you, it's on the southbound side of the turnpike, just south of Hancock in Lake County, but they're holding all northbound lanes as well because the smoke is so thick that you can't drive through it. So this is affecting traffic coming out of Orange County, heading up to Lake County. Traffic backed up now on the turnpike all the way before the 408 and going all the way up toward Hancock. So Another way to get up there would be preferable at this point, but it looks like it's going to be closed for quite a while. But right now, it's just nothing but stopped. It's a parking lot on the turnpike, again, from before the 408 all the way up into Lake County at Hancock. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service for honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction. Call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit protechac.com. From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I'm Paul Cross.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. News, weather, traffic, all the things you want on your drive home. Plus, Joe Kelley being, well, Joe Kelley. Now, the Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's news and talk, WDBO.
By the way, congratulations, Chris Osborne. Chris, if you run into Chris today, make sure you give him a big pat on the back and tell him congratulations, as he just scored $1,000 in the WDBO payroll payout. Your next chance to win is going to be coming up tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. on Orlando's Morning News with Scott Inez. Paul Cross. Paul.
Yep.
All right.
Yep.
We didn't hear you in that last traffic report.
You know what? There was a glitch in the matrix.
Yeah, I know. I know. It's been crazy.
Trying to get a hold of Greg because we have a red alert. This is a really bad thing, Joe.
Then I want to hear all about it. The stage is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is heading into Lake County northbound on the turnpike, or even heading out of Lake County on the turnpike southbound. There's a vehicle on fire, and the smoke is just black, thick, covering both sides of the turnpike, northbound and southbound. They've completely shut down all southbound lanes after Hancock. You can only get on now at Colonial State Road 50, but the northbound side they're holding because of the thick smoke. On the southbound side, it's completely making the visibility zero, and so you have really heavy delays. It's actually just a parking lot starting before the 408 all the way up into Lake County. So that's what we're dealing with right now. ProTech Air Conditioning and Plumbing Service for honesty, integrity, and 100% customer satisfaction. Call ProTech 407-291-1644 or visit protechac.com. You know, I hate when I talk all that time and no one hears me because it's award-winning.
Right.
And I just wasted all that breath.
No, it was just a rehearsal.
Yeah, it's a rehearsal.
That's right.
Perfect. I also put the photo of this on the WDBO Twitter or X page. So if you want to take a look at what I'm seeing, you can go there and check it out.
Outstanding. Thank you.
From the WDBO Triple Team Traffic Center, I guess I got to lock out. I'm Paul Cross.
Do you really?
Not really.
No,
I just wanted to say my name again.
I guess
I wanted to say it's branding.
Are you finished now? Are you done?
I guess.
Is it my turn? Can I talk now?
It is your show. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I got an open mic, and I want to air this open mic, and I want to admit a shortcoming of mine. Okay, I like to point out other people's flaws and brokenness, particularly those who represent us. When it comes to private affairs and personal matters and non-public figures, I don't care to point out people's flaws and brokenness. But if you're a public figure that represents us, I will point out your flaws and brokenness. And I'm always willing to point out my flaws and brokenness, but I want this open mic first.
Although many of us agree with you in Trump lying about simple facts, you're now obligated to point out many of the lies that the current president has stated. If you do not do this, your motives will be questioned.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point. I thank you for calling me out on that, and thank you for bringing that up. And I've got a couple of responses to that. First of which is, on many occasions, we have pointed out lies from the Biden administration and from Joe Biden himself. On many occasions, we have pointed out that Karine Jean-Pierre is a lying liar who also lies. But there's another piece of this, and this is where my flaws and brokenness come into play. I don't care about Democrat politicians, generally speaking. I don't care about the Democratic Party. There is no part of the Democratic Party that I support. None. There is no Democrat that I support politically. None. There are Democrats that I like. I know people who are Democrats that I'm personal friends with, but I won't vote for them and I won't support their political ideology. And because there is no part of the Democrat ideology that I support, I am sometimes less inclined to talk about them. Think of it this way. I love Coca-Cola and Coke products. And in fact, I've got a can of Coke sitting on my desk right now, and it is Coke mixed with coffee. And I could talk about Coke all day long because I like Coke and Coke products. My wife drinks Coke Zero. She likes Coke and Coke products. We never talk about Pepsi. We only talk about Pepsi when we have no choice but to talk about Pepsi. If I'm at a restaurant and I say I'd like a Coke, she says, we don't have Coke, we only have Pepsi. Then I'll say, well, fine, I'll take a Pepsi. Pepsi's not something I think about.
Is this an SNL skit?
It's not. Pepsi is just not something I think about, and the Democrat Party is not something I think about because it's not something that I would support. And so I am guilty of being hypercritical about Republicans because it is Republicans who represent me. And frankly, it's Republicans who represent most of this audience. So there are times in which I will commit a flaw and I will fail to harp on Democrats as much as I harp on Republicans. But it is only because I care about Republicans and I don't care about Democrats. But your point is well made. And I will double down on making sure that I am just as critical of Democrats as I am of Republicans. Though I will tell you that if I point out, I think it makes for boring radio. I think it makes for boring radio if I come on and say, here's all the times that Joe Biden lied today. Because not one of you is going to disagree. Not one of you is going to, I mean, everybody's going to be like, that's right, Joe. That's right, Joe. And it just doesn't make for very entertaining radio. But that's beside the point. And I'm going to play that open mic one more time because I think this guy's point is spot on.
Although many of us agree with you in Trump lying about simple facts, you're now obligated to point out many of the lies that the current president has stated. If you do not do this, your motives will be questioned.
I think that's a fair observation and a fair criticism of me. And I will accept that, and I accept that challenge, so thank you. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. Let's go to Mike in Deltona. You're on the Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Hey, Mike.
Hey, Joe. Welcome again to my afternoon drive home.
Thank you.
Anyways, yeah, a couple of comments. One, lawyers and used car salesmen are all alike, and I think that's what Joe did, was went to law school. And when their lips are moving, they're lying anyway. So, that being said, let me get back to the point that I was calling about, was in reference to the student loan debts. Now, it is very responsible, and unfortunately, yes, everybody, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, was sold on, yes, you've got to go to school or continue your education to be something or to do something.
You bet.
I went through trade school and the military as well, and, I've made whatever I can of myself and have supported my family quite well. Now, at the same time, when the bailouts and bankruptcies and stuff went rampant in the 2008 bust, I lost a great deal of respect for a very dear friend of mine who owned quite a few rental properties and defaulted on his mortgages, when the bubble burst, and said, hey, I'm just going to do bankruptcy, and it's the best I've ever slept.
He just walked away from it.
Years. He walked away from it. And, at the same time, I was working 2 jobs and supporting 2 homes as well. And he had asked me numerous times, well, why don't you just, do it, walk away from it. I put the keys under the mat and walked away from it.
Yeah.
I'm like, no, this is my damn responsibility. And I made the choice to buy the second home. I will accept what my choice was. Same thing with these people and their student debts. I've heard of so many people taking so much BS classes that, in the real world, it makes no sense for the classes that these people have signed up for and taken loans to go to school, continuing education. Well, by gosh, they're damn responsible, and they need to take care of their responsibilities like every other hardworking American does.
Mike, I got to tell you, I've got one daughter who is in college at the University of Tennessee, and I've got 2 17-year-old sons who will graduate from high school and then have big decisions to make. And I've had discussions with all 3 of them, asking them about their majors, about what they want to do, as a profession. And I time and time again tell them, if you're going to go to college, you need to determine what kind of income range you're going to be earning and determine whether or not it's even worth going to college for that income range. I mean, if you're going to spend $200,000 on a college education for a job that pays you $35,000 a year, that's terrible math.
Absolutely. There was one time when that in the financial dismay of the late 2000s. 2000s.
I know,
that sounds weird.
It is. It's so hard to say that, isn't it?
Yes, but when I had gotten laid off from my job and I went to one of the community colleges to look about another possible job, went to look at architecture. The only thing they had at that one was CAD art. And they were saying, okay, I asked, well, once I turn out after paying this amount of money for the next couple of years and I turn out, what am I going to be making? Oh, well, let's see. You'll be making about $35,000 to $38,000. I'm like, well, if that was a hobby, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
But it ain't a hobby. It's for my life.
And of course, there once was a time in which $38,000 was a good salary, and you could buy a house, and you could have a car, and you could have a family. But those days are long since gone.
Yes, sir, they are.
And I'm afraid we may never go back to them. Mike, I'm so glad you called. Thank you for letting me be a part of your afternoon drive. I really do appreciate that. 844-580-WDBO. Let's go to St. Cloud. Ramon is on the Joe Kelley Show. Hi, Ramon.
How's it going, Joe?
Very good, thanks.
Hey, Joe. So really quick, man, this is the biggest issue going on right now with the Republican Party. The open mic that you played earlier proves a point as to how far gone the Republican Party is. If you saw the hearing when one of the Democratic reps asked if Hunter Biden and Donald Trump both get convicted, if they should both face the charges that they were convicted with, all the Democrats said yes. If it was Joe Biden, if it was Hunter Biden, if it's Trump, they all said yes. I'm a lifelong Republican, but this Republican Party is a crap show. It's a joke. Now, one of them could have raised their hand that Trump and Hunter should have been able to get convicted. So my biggest point is, if Donald Trump is the nominee, we are literally handing Joe Biden another 4 years. Point blank, period. As much as people love him, as much as people follow him and, strive to get Donald Trump back in office, if that man wins the Republican nomination, we are literally going to give Joe Biden another 4 years. He cannot win the suburban women. He cannot win more votes than he got in 2020. That's going to be impossible.
That has been,
just aren't there.
Ramon, that has also been my concern, that if he becomes the nominee, that there is a very good chance that because so many people hate Donald Trump, that Joe Biden will win again. But my biggest point is, when the election happened, I don't say that Joe Biden won the election.
Oh, I agree.
He
didn't win 2020.
No.
Donald Trump lost.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Yes, it was Donald Trump's race to lose, and he lost it. There aren't people out there with big banners and flags supporting Joe Biden. There's not a groundswell of love and support for Joe Biden.
Oh, God, no.
It is all about hatred of Donald Trump that got Joe Biden elected. And the only thing that might stop Joe Biden from getting reelected is just his dementia, his rapidly deteriorating state.
Or any other Republican. It could be anyone. Joe, you could run and you could beat Joe Biden. Let's be real. Like, it could be anybody else but Trump.
Yep.
Anyone. Anybody. Anybody could beat Joe Biden.
Well, I think the other Republican candidates need to make that point clear at every campaign stop they make. But Ramon, you have heard the callers here today. You've heard the open mics, not just today, but anytime we talk about Donald Trump. Those who support and follow Donald Trump don't care at all about his shortcomings and lies and everything else like that. They're gonna vote for him no matter what, and they think if he loses, it was a rigged election.
We're so far gone. Well, Joe, it was such a pleasure talking to you. I hope you have a great rest of your week, bud.
You too, buddy. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being a part of the Joe Kelley Show. Make sure you check out the Joe Kelley Show podcast. It is available wherever you get your podcasts, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. It is really a rapidly growing podcast. We're very excited about that. Also, look for the Joe Kelley Show on Facebook, wherever you get your Facebook, which, is on Facebook, pretty much. I'm Joe Kelley. We'll continue here on WDBO.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Connected to our community. Talk local issues and events with Joe Kelley. Use the open mic in the WDBO app and let Joe know what interests you. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Hey, Joe, I got a great idea. How about a GoFundMe page for all this college tuition debt? That way, whoever wants to contribute can do so.
Yeah, there's plenty of billionaires out there who, liberal billionaires that I'm sure would love to donate to that and help pay off everybody's student loan debt. Yeah, let's try that. It's better than taxpayer dollars going towards that. I mean, it just is an insult. It seems like it would be a crime. And I'm not the first person to make this observation. In fact, I think Mike Rowe was the first who really made this point. And that is there are plenty of other people who have had to invest money into their careers beyond college. There are farmers who had to go out and buy, a $2 million tractor. But they get no relief from the federal government in paying that back. How is that different than a college student taking out $1 million loan or a $250,000 loan to be able to pay for their college education? It's just not fair that we're picking and choosing the winners and losers, and I just hate that.
I know you said that you would vote for Trump if he's on the ballot. I just can't believe that an intelligent person would want to subject our country to a crook and an insurrectionist.
All right, so a crook. So far, Donald Trump has not been convicted of any crimes. He's a potential crook, and I'll grant you, he's a liar. He's a pathological liar. He's got all kinds of problems and flaws, as do we all. Now, when you're talking about a crook, I don't know how you can look at Joe Biden and not see the smoke where there's fire. It hasn't caught up with Joe Biden yet, but there is a lot of smoke in the Joe Biden camp. And if that guy's not a crook, I don't know who is. Joe Biden's got crook written all over him. And as far as an insurrectionist, Donald Trump certainly did rally the troops on January 6th. And his inactions may have made it worse, but his actions did not trigger an insurrection. Nobody has been charged with insurrection. So I reject the premise. I reject the question. 844-580-WDBO or hit me up in the open mic and the WDBO app.
This is WDBO 107.3 FM and AM 580, Orlando's news and talk. In Insightful.
You tell the truth from your point of view.
Entertaining.
Man, that guy is a lot taller than he sounds on the radio.
And engaging.
When we hear you on the radio, it's a good thing.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO.
Senator Feinstein is finally in hell where she belongs. Hell's flames are flickering a little bit brighter today with the passing of Dianne Feinstein. Feinstein's a good start, but come on, give us Pelosi or Soros next. Those aren't my words. That's me reading comments from the WDBO Facebook page, where WDBO listeners, or at least users of our social media, posted comments on the death of Dianne Feinstein. Dancing on the grave of a political opponent is so unseemly. It is so grotesque. It's sad. This, as an ammunition company, is celebrating the death of Democrat Senator Dianne Feinstein by offering free shipping on ammunition orders to the Golden State. Phoenix Ammunition tweeted, to celebrate the death of Senator Feinstein, we're offering free shipping on ammunition to California customers today through October 31st. Simply select Good Riddance Dianne at checkout. Evil authoritarians should be mocked in death the same as they are in life. No quarter, Phoenix Ammunition writes. In response to somebody on social media who said that the company had crossed a line, the company said that it also plans to celebrate after Democrat Representative Nancy Pelosi of California passes away. The company tweets, we'll do the same thing when Nancy Pelosi dies. Another post from the company says, we'll celebrate in exactly the same way when Nancy Pelosi, Beto O'Rourke, Michael Bloomberg, or anyone else of that ilk finally keels over. Phoenix Ammunition also wrote, I'm going to drink a gallon of coffee, a pound of asparagus, and pee all over your grave the first chance I get. What have we come to? How do we treat political opponents as enemies of the state? Now, this as a left-wing journalist in Philadelphia who routinely downplayed violent crime was shot and killed in his Philadelphia home early this morning. This guy's name is Josh Kruger, a lefty journalist based out of Philadelphia, an activist. He was shot and killed inside his home this morning. Had a long history of downplaying violent crime in the city. He openly mocked those who expressed concerns about homicides in Philadelphia. He wrote, some idiot just said you're more likely to get shot and killed than die of COVID in Philly, to make some insensitive rhetorical point for his side. He continues, folks, 4 times as many Philadelphians have died of COVID than gunshots this year. I understand math is hard, but do better. The 39-year-old was shot 7 times at a residence around 1:30 a.m. this morning. No arrests have been made in connection with the shooting. He was known for being openly far left in his views. He was vehemently against the political views that did not align with his own. In a video he posted to X back in August, he ranted against straight people. I'm effing done with it, straight people. They should have never given you people the right to marry. He was viciously against Donald Trump, claiming that racism is the only reason Trump ever became president. The Philadelphia district attorney described Kruger as an openly queer writer who wrote about his own journey surviving substance use disorder and homelessness. He was recognized by the LGBTQ Advisory Committee, who called him a comrade. He was HIV positive, a former drug addict, homosexual, and people are now dancing on his grave as well. I would like to point out that when Rush Limbaugh died, many on the left danced on Rush Limbaugh's grave, and we were appalled by it. It was grotesque when people danced on Rush Limbaugh's grave. And if you thought it was inappropriate to dance on his grave, how is it not similarly inappropriate to dance on Dianne Feinstein's grave? I didn't support her. I wouldn't have voted for her. I don't think there was a single ideological issue that I ever would have agreed with Dianne Feinstein. But to celebrate another human being's death is beyond the pale. It is grotesque. We're better than that. We used to be better than that. We should be better than that. You can share your thoughts. 844-580-WDBO. It's 844-580-9326. You can use the open mic in the WDBO app. We got a lot of other comments coming in on the open mic.
What people need to get through their heads is that Trump is a man. He is not a god. He is not a monster. He is a fallible human being. He lies. He makes mistakes. He's not perfect. I personally think he was an incredible president. I will be glad to support him again. But he isn't perfect. And people need to get off that stick.
I totally support that. I respect that and I support that. You're absolutely right. Let's stop pretending. And honestly, when I see people who go beyond supporting Donald Trump and idolize him, you might as well get a golden calf at the foot of Mount Sinai and start worshiping it. That's how repugnant it is, the godlike worship of Donald Trump. He is just a man. He is not perfect, and he is not God. 844-580-WDBO. You're listening to The Joe Kelley Show.
The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. The Joe Kelley Show on WDBO. Breaking news to lively debates, covering the issues that matter to you.
I make it a point to listen to Joe Kelley when I need to fully understand what's happening in the news.
Now, The Joe Kelley Show on Orlando's News and Talk, WDBO.
All right, Paul Cross, we have an open mic question about the car fire. And I don't know if you're going to know the answer to this, but it's still a good question. So let's take a listen.
Is this turnpike car fire a lithium battery?
Didn't say anything about that.
Do we know what kind of car it is? Is it
no,
an EV?
I couldn't. You know what? I will be. All seriousness, it's a black car now. That's all I can see. It's just completely burned. I couldn't get a camera close to it. It's charred. The other thing is they kept reporting it as the police department holding all northbound lanes, and the barbecue, as somebody had mentioned in the chat room here, was on the southbound side. It was actually on the northbound side, and they only have one lane open right now. Traffic is at a gridlock, but I have no idea what kind of car it is. Was. Well,
that's interesting. All right. Well, if it was an EV, we'll find out that it was an EV. And
I'm sure.
But look, cars have been around in an internal combustion engine. Cars have been around for a long time, and they have caught on fire for a long time. But those EVs tend to burn with greater intensity, greater temperature, higher temperature, and harder to put out.
Well, I'll tell you, that smoke was thick black smoke. So don't know exactly what kind of. They don't have a tendency to say, hey, there's this blank type of car on fire. It just gets listed as a vehicle fire. But I'll try to find out for you.
We appreciate that. Another open mic here tonight.
Hey, Joe, I disagree with you on that. Trump's not God, but only God can save this country. And at least he believes in God, because the Democrats definitely don't. And you know that.
I don't even know how to respond to that. Do you believe that God? Do you believe that God is an American first God? Do you believe that God sits down and thinks, all right, what can I do to make America a better place? Do you think God picks countries? I don't.
He has his voter registration card, Joe.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to need to see that. Look, Donald Trump held up a Bible one time. There's scant evidence that he ever goes to church. I don't know what's in his heart. I couldn't begin to know what's in his heart. But to paint with a broad brush and say we know that Democrats don't believe in God is ridiculous. We don't know that. You don't know what's in people's hearts. And because we disagree with them politically doesn't mean that they're all atheists. It just doesn't work that way. I'm Joe Kelley. I'll stick around for the 7 o'clock newscast, filling in for Laurel here tonight. And we're back tomorrow, 5 till 7, right here on WDBO.
Run the Army's race in person at the Pentagon. Army 10-miler general registration is now open. Go to Army10miler.com to register today. General registration presented by General Dynamics. Register today at Army10miler.com.